大家下午好，欢迎来到由跨国公司 Mentor&Co 蒙科和欧洲导师与教练协会 EMCC 的共同举办的第100场导师技术论坛。今天我们是第58场。今日我们的主题是导师辅导如何实现自我的身心完整。接下来让我们认识一下今天的演讲嘉宾 Mariann， 她是心理治疗师和心理综合督导师。是欧洲导师与教练协会 EMCC 的大师级教练和督导，是 Levity Live 的总裁，也是大名鼎鼎的麦肯锡公司前执行助理兼主管。Mariann 是一名经验丰富的心理治疗师和心理综合教练，超个人心理学又称新心理学。Mariann 在该领域拥有超过20年的经验，她是教练的教练和督导。在从事治疗和教练工作之前，他曾就职于国际咨询公司麦肯锡，以及领导一个石油和天然气基金会的国际业务，并且这个业务在北京也设有当地办事处。接下来让我为大家介绍一下今天的主办方们。欧洲导师与教练协会，简称 EMCC， 是专门为导师、教练和督导提供国际资格认证的非营利性组织。它的总部在比利时布鲁塞尔，在全球遍布140多个国家，有55000多名会员。大家如果感兴趣，请扫码关注蒙科跨国公司 Mentor&Co， 它源于1981年，是冠军头部企业服务商，是企业导师技术及组织隐形知识管理领域的全球知名教育。Mentor&Co 蒙科总部位于比利时布鲁塞尔，被美国人力资源杂志评为2022年度全球最佳组织隐形知识管理服务商。我们在全球41个国家有600多名专业顾问，并且服务于跨国公司、央企、国企、民企、国际组织、政府机构，并且我们的专业服务涉及医疗、教育、金融、法律等各行各业。我们专注于2项核心技术的培训和咨询。第一呢是隐形知识萃取，第二呢是企业导师传承。我们蒙科中国不仅专注于企业导师制以及组织隐形知识管理的培训和咨询，并且我们还提供欧洲导师与教练协会 EMCC 的导师课程和认证，是 EMCC 官方认证的中国大陆唯一导师服务机构，是国际职业导师协会 IPMA 中国独家授权合作伙伴，也是组织隐形知识管理全球智库的理事单位。那接下来让我们热烈欢迎今天的演讲嘉宾 Mariann 给我们带来精彩的演讲。
Hello, my name is Mariann Marthinussen, and I'm here today to talk to you about the topic of subpersonalities. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to the EMCC China for allowing me this opportunity, and I'm very happy to do this with you and for you today. So let's go in and look at some slides that has been prepared for this presentation. And here we are. My name, Mariann Marthinussen, and I have been working as a psychotherapist and a coach, supervisor, and teacher in psychosynthesis for a very long time. I've been working with thousands of people over the years. And one of the tools within psychosynthesis is just what we're going to talk about today. It is the topic of subpersonalities and what they do to us. And this topic is something that is important to me because personally, I've learned a lot from it, and I also use it in my client work. And we're going to see today how you can do that for yourself and your clients. And subpersonalities are something that is within each and every one of us, whether we are aware of it or not. So we're going to see what are these subpersonalities, what are they, what can they look like, and where are they coming from? We're going to see how they can affect us, our lives and our businesses, and how you can discover your own subpersonalities. And we're going to round this off as to creating a little roadmap for you to see how you can be whole, more wholesome within you in order to, with using this as a tool for you in your personal development and business. So first off, a little fun fact. Here's me and my two nieces, Guru and Siv. And this is also one of my subpersonalities. As you can see, I have dark hair in the picture. That is because I had for a long time this deep desire of being a brunette, which I'm not. However, you don't have to change your hair color in order to discover a subpersonality, but this is just to show that they can be an expression like that. But subpersonalities are so much more than hair color. They are our attitudes, they are our behaviors. And to show what I mean, I'm going to share a couple of stories with you to see how they can affect us in our business as well. Now, first off, I'm going to share the story of Hannah. Hannah, by the way, this is not the real Hannah. This is just a picture. And Hannah is 47-year-old CEO. She has more or less created this company on her own, and she is known to be very efficient. She has a great organizational talent. She is attentive to details and very efficient. So with all these capabilities, people are leaving the business. And Hannah doesn't quite understand why people are leaving. She tries to talk to them, but there's not really much feedback she's getting. And she feels that the salaries are good, and the opportunities are great, and the products that are making is perfect. So why are people leaving the company? What Hannah is failing to see in all of her efficiency is that her talent for organizing is leaning towards controlling. Her innate ability to organize, see the bigger perspective, to understand how things can be more efficient. She tends to go into micromanaging her employees. Hannah has perfected the perfectionist. The perfectionist is a very known subpersonality that appears in many people. The perfectionist sometimes or very often works hand in hand with another subpersonality called the controller. However, those can be hard to distinguish from each other sometimes. So today we're just going to focus on Hannah's perfectionist. Now, this perfectionist likes to be on top of everything, but by being on top of everything, she tends to be involved in everything too, which is not that great for a CEO. And also not so great for her other managers, because that is hindering and blocking their creative ideas when she tends to want to have everything perfect to begin with. Now, Hannah is not aware of this. So what's going to change? Is it going to be Hannah or the employees leaving? Hannah is struggling with her company, and she's feeling the stress, and she's feeling like things are starting to fail. And failure is definitely not an option for Hannah, because she is brought up in an environment where failing is not acceptable. In her upbringing, she actually wanted to dance and sing. She had artistic talents. However, these artistic talents were not so appreciated by her parents as she was growing older. They were cute as a kid, But becoming older, they wanted her to go into more academics and study things that were more tangible that they could understand to be a safe occupation. So Hannah put all of that aside and went to business school. And through business school, she got good grades. And through the good grades and everything that she did, she got applause. People were now rooting for her. So in a way, Hannah early on created the perfectionist, understanding that things had to be perfect in order for her to get appraisal, in order for her to be noticed, valued. Now that is quite an accomplishment, but also, can you imagine the pressure having to be perfect all the time? Maybe you can. Maybe you can relate to Hannah's story. Because what's happening in all of that perfection is that she is freezing up. Her personality is freezing up, thinking she has only that type of expression that's allowed to come out. So in Hannah's case, she's starting to struggle. She is starting to lose her concentration. She is starting to lose her faith in herself. And being the CEO where you can talk to nobody about these things is a pretty lonely place to be. So Hannah comes to coaching. And it is through the coaching that Hannah is now discovering that what she thought was her identity, being perfect in everything she did, is not quite true. It is part of her, absolutely, but it's not who she is. So through the coaching, she is starting to get a handle on the perfectionist and what the perfectionist's drive within her is, and what she can possibly let go of and what she cannot. So what Hannah is learning through the coaching is that while she is pulling back a little bit and starting to observe her perfectionist, she's now being able to make choices for herself that's a little different. Now, she started and built her career on being meticulous, and nothing is going to stop her. Now, what she's finding is that that control that comes from that is hindering the company to grow as well. So the finances are failing because there is no room for creativity in our company. And the managers are feeling this. And as we all know, creativity can be a little bit messy. So we cannot be creative and hold on to control at the same time. That doesn't work. So there's a tug of war here with her controlling and they trying to be creative. So at this point, the company is not growing anymore. And that is not a good thing for her finances. So what this is showing us is that Hannah's strive for perfection in everything is now hindering the company to blossom. But through her coaching, she's starting to discover this perfectionist and what it does that's good for her and what it is that is limiting her. And through this, she's also rediscovering her artistic talents that she had as a young child. And she's starting to see that if she can implement a little bit more of that side of her into her role as a CEO, she is slowly changing her approach to a lot of things. Not easy. Not an easy task. But in Hannah's case, it's a must in order to move forward. So what this is showing her also is that as she is changing, this is a change for her employees as well, because now they're working for a different boss, not the same boss that they started out as. So they all have to get accustomed to this new way Hannah is approaching her business. But now she's allowing more freedom. She's allowing more freedom to the managers to come up with ideas, to go into their creative mode before she gets involved, allowing them freedom to do that before she can bring in the perfectionist to suggest better ideas or to improve the ideas. She understands now that she needs to hold back a while for that to blossom, for that to live before she can come in and use those talents in a much more proficient and better way for everybody. So I'm going to share one more story. And this is the story of Jan. And Jan also have a perfectionist. However, in Jan's case, he is now applying for a new job. Jan is really needing another job. And in order to go to the interview for this new job, he wants to be prepared. He wants to be prepared so well that he's going to nail this. And you may ask, what's wrong with that? Isn't that what we do? Of course it is. We do prepare. That's a good task. And that is a good side of the perfectionist wanting to do things proper. However, in Jan's case in this scenario is that he is so afraid of getting it wrong that he stays up all night reading everything he can about the company he's going to being interviewed for the next day, their strategies, their opportunities. He wants to show off his talent. He wants to show off that he can be a contribution. What he ends up doing is that he oversleeps because he stayed up so late so he doesn't hear his alarm clock. I think you can imagine the pressure he's feeling as he was waking up, realizing he's going to be late for the very appointment that he has been striving so hard to be perfect for. So he arrives at the interview late. So now he's being viewed as tardy, which is something he seldom is. But this is when the perfectionist comes in and is unbalanced. This is when we think that this is all we need to do. So I think and I hope that many of you actually can relate to these stories, can relate to these people. Because in a way, there may be a perfectionist in each and every one of us. They just show up a little bit different for each and every one of us. So how can we use this? What can we do about this? These voices need to be seen and heard. Because if we try to diminish these voices within us, and you're not schizophrenic, what actually is going to create more of an imbalance within you is not listening to these desires and these needs that subpersonalities are showing to you. That is when we get into the struggle that you can see in this picture. These voices need to be accepted as part of you. And how can you do that? We're going to look at that because they have different desires, they have different talents, they have different abilities, and they all seek expression. And you are just not one expression. You are not just one thing. You are a multitude of aspects that wants to come forth. And that can be a little bit mind-blowing sometimes. But the more we hold back on these, actually, the more mental illness we can create. So there's a balance here. And we need to understand where the center of this is, how to center yourself. So let's look at some famous subpersonalities. And one of the subpersonalities is called the victim. The one that says, poor me. The one that is helpless. The one that feels that the world is against him or her. The one that feels I have no power to change anything. And this is a very naturally powerless position to be in. However, it's also a very irresponsible position to take, because you do have power to change, but you need to be willing to accept that. You need to be willing to accept that you have power to change your circumstances, but also take the consequences that follows. The victim doesn't necessarily like consequences. They don't necessarily want to take full responsibility for their own lives and their own happenings. So that is one thing that we differentiate in therapy and coaching, is that if you have a coachee who tends to go into the victim mode quite a bit, therapy is more appropriate than coaching, because you need to be willing to take responsibility in order to move forward and to deal with especially this subpersonality work. The next one, let's call it the hero. This is the subpersonality who comes to the rescue, who runs forth and wants to help in every case. This is the subpersonality who you want to have as a friend. You want the one that can be your backbone. However, if you are the one who is the hero, the Superman, Superwoman, Superperson in other people's lives, that can be extremely tiring. And after a while, if that's all you do, you may tend to actually lapse into the victim role, because you're spending all that energy outside of yourself. So what you need to recognize is that the hero within you actually needs to be a hero for him or herself sometimes as well, to see how you can use that energy of helping into solving things within you and not for everybody else. Number 3, we have the perfectionist, which we have talked about. Then we have number 4, the martyr. And the martyr subpersonality is interesting because it kind of reminds us of the victim, but it has a little bit of a different flavor to it, because this one has a tendency to suffer, and suffer for either a cause, which can be, it can be a company, it can be an organization, it can be an ideology, it can be a product, it can be anything. But the martyr seems to be attached to suffering. It has almost a craving for suffering. And it can also be the one in a relationship who needs to suffer. Once again, a very powerless subpersonality at its worst. But this is where we go into playing with the subpersonalities, because they are not just one thing. They have their limits, but they also have their positive sides. And we need to understand where they're coming from in order to get into their positive sides. So the martyr here, on a positive note, can actually be the one who's showing you what you want to fight for, what's important, what kind of values are important to you. So there's a little play on the poles here, on the opposites that these subpersonalities are teaching us. The 5th one is the rebel. And the rebel, interestingly enough, can thrive with opposition. It can thrive in resistant environments. Why? Because it needs resistance to break through. The rebel is seeking freedom. It is seeking something new. It wants things to change. The rebel is never satisfied with status quo. The rebel wants change. However, on the immature side, the rebel may not be so interested in taking responsibility for the change. They just want to create change, but when it comes to executing it, if the rebel is not mature enough, it's going to run away and just have created a lot of drama and leave it to somebody else to clean up. So this is where the rebel needs to go from being an immature rebellion to a mature taking responsibility and moving into an execution of the change that they want to see. And here we can actually use a living example like Nelson Mandela. He was a rebel in his young age, irresponsible. However, all those years in prison allowed him in a very harsh way to mature as a person and to understand his own values and to understand the driving force that was within him. So that's number 5. Let's go to number 6. And number 6, I'm naming the helper. The helper is closely related to the hero. However, it doesn't have such a prominent attitude. It's more of a back office type of subpersonality. And it's often located in health-related occupations such as therapy and coaching. And the helper has a deep desire to be of assistance. It has a very, in contrary to the hero who wants to fix things, who wants to put action on things, the helper is more driven by feeling important through his or her help and assistance. So it's maybe quite more quiet type of a subpersonality. But once again, what can happen here is that the helper is so focused on other people's needs that once again, the helper forgets his or her own. They become, in the worst case, a doormat for other people to step on and to use because they don't take care of themselves. So the helper is, of all these subpersonalities, well, along with a few of them, I should say, is in a very good position to become burned out because of this attitude of wanting to be important through their helping. So the helper also needs to mature and to understand and have a little bit of a perspective on why this helping is such a big desire and need in their lives. Where does it come from? The 7th and final one I am going to share with you today is the drama queen. The drama queen is always fun to impersonate. And the drama queen, you can find the drama queen within people who have a lot of trouble with emotional self-regulation, because the drama queen thrives on their strong emotions. They thrive on the drama that they can create. They thrive on that energy. So it's important to understand where the drama queen is coming from. Why does the person feel it's necessary to create such a big scene in order to be seen or heard? Or sometimes they do it in the hiding as well. Then it becomes a more manipulative attitude where they create drama and triangle settings and setting people up towards each other and then pulls out just because they enjoy the drama. So you will find these subpersonalities in just about anywhere in the business world, as well in your private life. And of course, this is not a full spectrum of what they are. What I've done here is I've kind of created an archetype of subpersonalities. And it's not limited to these 7, absolutely not. And each and every one of us will have our own little template of subpersonalities, which you would call your own thing, which will resonate with how you are relating to them within you. But maybe, just maybe, you can recognize a few of these within yourself already, or in your partner, your spouse, your family, or at work. So how can we use this? How can we use this in a proper way for ourselves? before we do that, let's go and see what creates these subpersonalities on a deeper level. Because in order to not fix, but in order to integrate these subpersonalities, we need to understand where they're coming from and what they're trying to show us. If we skip the understanding, we will most likely have a resistance to the ones that we don't like and have a tendency to just go with the ones that we feel are helping us much more. So we need to do that deeper inner work to understand, where is this coming from in me? What is it that is trying to come forth? So first of all, they have a need. And in all people, I would say, there are these basic needs that Maslow has lined up for us. And a lot of them are security, safety, being seen, felt, heard, acknowledged. And when we as people don't feel we are getting this, we develop a strategy to get that need met. We go out and try and grab it or attach it. Let's say you have a need to feel secure. And if you have a need to feel secure, your strategy will be to either attach to people who can help you feel secure, employ people who is going to make you feel secure, or it can just as well be that you try and control things around you, because the control is allowing you to feel secure. So as you can see, the strategies can be a little bit different for each and every one of us, but the need can be the same. So where's this leading us? Well, it's leading to a behavior. Like I said before, if you need control to feel safe, that is going to allow you to have a controlling behavior, either with your spouse, your partner, your employees, in order for that need to be met. And this is how a subpersonality is made. So you can start on anywhere in the spiral to try and understand where things are coming from. Sometimes it's hard to go straight into the need, because if people are not too conscious and aware of their own history and their own actions, it may be easier to go starting with the behavior and then see what strategy is coming out of that, and then go into, well, what is that telling you? What kind of need is that showing up for you? So what's important here now? I talked about the center, and that is what's important, is we need to understand that there's something within us that we call the self, the observer. That is the part of you who can detach from all of this, who can observe these subpersonalities playing around in your life. We need to be able to go into the observer and view this from the outside without identifying to each and every subpersonality. That is where we are getting entangled. Now, the subpersonality is created both by our conscious and our unconscious needs. So sometimes it's easy to understand the subpersonality and find out where it's coming from. And sometimes we need to look a little bit deeper. And like I said, if we can go to the strategy of what they're doing, it's going to help us understand what they're trying to do for us as well. And they're going to act often on autopilot, like we saw in the story of Hannah. She was not aware of that this was a subpersonality to begin with. She thought this was who she had to be. And the pressure of being perfect in every single aspect of life, I mean, it sucks the breath out of you. Really. You stop breathing. And when you stop breathing, that's not healthy. That's not healthy for your body, for your mind, for your soul, for your feelings, for anything. So the perfectionist in Hannah was so automated that she didn't even know that she had other aspects waiting to come in and actually help her do the job as a CEO. So this can be a fun game to be discovering all of this. And I'm hoping that this is helping you to understand how the subpersonalities are working within us and why they also come in conflict with each other. And what I wanted to show you here is that there is a roadmap to this. Because once you start looking, discovering your subpersonalities, you will see that sometimes the victim are playing with the martyr, and sometimes the rebel wants to play with the hero. And the perfectionist aligns with the critique. So they are cooperating, but also quarreling within us. Now, the road to mastery, to becoming the master of all of these, are by recognizing them, are by recognizing that you have a whole spectrum of subpersonalities that are exhibiting your talents, but also your development needs. So in order to look at these, you can start feeling more whole within you, and you can understand why sometimes you get into conflict with yourself. The rule here is not to avoid them, of course. Like I said earlier, they need to be seen and heard. And they need to be seen for what it is that they are trying to bring to our lives. If they weren't trying to bring something valuable to our lives, they wouldn't be there. So let's go on. And as you have been probably seeing through the stories I've shared, is that they always have an opposite. When you have the victim within you, when you are taking the victim role, there is the hero lurking somewhere in the shadows, waiting to be acknowledged, waiting to be seen, waiting to come on stage with the victim, to show that you are more than. You are just not one thing, you are more. And that is the whole message here. You're always more. But it's up to you to discover what that more is. And not to just accept that you have one that is bad and one that is good. No. When we use these subpersonalities like the perfectionist in the story of Hannah to the T, that doesn't mean that the perfectionist is not good, because it has a lot of great talents that is bringing forth in her. However, when she's overusing it, that's when it's becoming a hindrance to her. When she can start moderating it and use it when it's appropriate, it will serve her and not hinder her. This picture, if you look at this picture and you see each and every one in this picture as a subpersonalities, you will see that each and every one of them either have a voice or an instrument, and they all want to talk, play, come out. Your responsibility as a person is to become the conductor, to become the observer and conductor, the center of all of these subpersonalities within you. That is your task. And that is where true empowerment lies. That is where true control lies. Because by acknowledging this within you, you will see that you don't need to control maybe as much as you do, because you don't have to be afraid of them anymore. When you see your personalities, they are not controlling you, but you are controlling them. And that is a vast difference in feeling that you have some subpersonality that's run off and do things, and you're kind of tagging behind going, oh my God, what happened? Why did I say that? Why did I do that? Well, that can be a subpersonality that hasn't been listened to. So the benefit of knowing your subpersonality is that you will have more innate control, but also freedom in your life. Subsequently, that will allow you to have more energy. Now, how can you discover these subpersonalities? There's a lot of ways you can discover them. One is, of course, starting to reflect on your life, being reflective on your behavior in circumstances that you are part of. What is your role? What is your need? What is happening? When you start reflecting on this, you can either start imagining them in your head, or you can start to draw them. And once you have identified them, start conversing with them, engage in a dialogue. However, it's important that when you start opening up to converse with them, do not condemn them, do not judge them or reprieve them. Converse with curiosity, neutrality, to open up to the voice that they have, to understand what they want to say. Because if you don't accept them, if you are critiquing them for being in your life, they are actually going to get more energy. They are actually going to just make themselves feel unheard even more. So you can write about it in a journal. You can describe what you're observing, what you're seeing, what you like, what you don't like. That's fine. Write a letter to them. And try and sort out how they are providing for you, what it is that they are giving you. In what kind of circumstances are they beneficial, and in what kind of circumstances are they not so beneficial? Try and reveal their needs and strategies, their expression, attitudes. And most of all, practice becoming the observer of it all, observer of what is happening. That is where the true power lies. You can also act them out. You can act out these subpersonalities like I did, like you saw in the first picture here. I acted out the brunette subpersonalities just to see what it felt like to be a brunette. How did that affect me? So play with them. You can play with them. Most important of all, how are you going to be free? How are you going to become whole in all of this? And here lies the key to it all: compassion and acceptance. Now, that may take some time for you to be compassionate and accepting of these subpersonalities, especially the ones that you feel have created havoc in your life. But still, trying to create an understanding for them, and do not feel sorry for them. By all means, do not feel sorry for them, because once again, that's going to activate them even more. And feeling sorry for somebody or something is part of judgment. So the more neutral you can become towards these subpersonalities and understanding their mechanisms, the easier it can become to accept them and be compassionate. As you can see, I've listed a whole number of things. You can get this slide afterwards in order to understand them, where they are popping up, in what relationships, in what situations are they often appearing, in order to understand where they're coming from, and to try and understand what they're afraid of. Because a lot of these subpersonalities has been with you for a lifetime. They don't want to give up their job so easily. They've been part of who you are. Like in Hannah, the perfectionist has been both a friend and an obstacle. But she doesn't want to give up her perfectionist just because she sees that it's hindering her sometimes. She loves her perfectionist now because she sees all the good that it's creating for her as well. So we need to be honest. We need to be really honest in this work. Be honest with yourself. Now, we've been through how to recognize them. And which one did you recognize for yourself? Which one do you take home? We've been through what creates them, how to identify them, their purpose and their need. And finally, we also touched upon the way out and the way home, which is acceptance and compassion for yourself, for all of that you are. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for staying all through the end. And if you'd like to learn more about subpersonalities, here's my contact information. And I am happy to talk to you. And I believe that now there's going to be a Q&A. So whatever questions you may have for me, bring them on, and I will do my best to answer them. Once again, thank you to EMCC for allowing me to have this presentation for your members. And let's go on to questions.
So here's questions about observer. Yes.
What about it?
Yeah, I think you are in favor of being an observer in our life. Just you mentioned in your webinar. So so maybe people can be in the childhood, people can be totally 100 happy, but when they grow up, they realized lessons and misfortunes depend on each other. So they cannot be 100 happy anymore because they are afraid the next second here comes the bad luck. So being observer, maybe so the person doesn't think it's a state of being at present, so it can't feel the 100 happy.
Okay.
Because observer is means calm, self-possessed, rational. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I'm just gonna get the light out of my face. When I'm mentioning the observer,
sorry, would you mind my translating first? Yes. Yeah. 刚刚有一个问题是关于成为一个观察者，那就是在我们童年的时候我们都可能会感受到100%的快乐，但是当我们慢慢长大之后呢，我们意识到好运和厄运有时候是相互依存的，就相当于我们中国有句老话叫做福祸相依，塞翁失马焉知非福。那我们可能就不会让自己变得100%的快乐，因为我们可能知道我们现在的快乐，下一秒就可能是厄运的到来。那如果你成为一个生活中的观察者，那你就不能够让自己全身心的投入到那种快乐之中。那我想让那位观众想要就是问一下 Mariann， 就他会怎么看待这样的状态 ？Yes, I'm finished.
Okay. When being a child, when being within the emotions, it's impossible to be the observer naturally. The observer is something we need to practice once we get older, once we get the ability to reflect. That is when we can bring the observer in. So it has to have somewhat maturity within us before we can go into the observer role.
Yes.
Translate everyone.
Yeah，就我们当时一个小孩的时候，我们会拥有很多的情感，但其实，在我们就是天然的人性当中，我们是可以成为一个观察者的。但是呢，成为观察者是需要我们不断的去实践和训练的，它需要我们不断的长大之后，通过反思，通过我们逐渐的成熟，然后慢慢的成为一个观察者。Yes.
So when I talk about the observer, it's from the adult perspective. And what helps going into the observer is that we will still have all our emotions. We are not deflecting them or trying to minimize them. But the difference is when we act on our emotions, we are in the power of the emotion. As to if you practice the observer, you have a choice. You have a choice to act on the emotion or act in a different way. It gives you a choice. The observer gives you a choice.
OK. 那当我们说到观察者的时候，是从一个成人的视角来看待这个问题，也不是说我们不能有情感，也不是说我们必须要就是弱化这种情感，而是我们在就是成为观察者的时候呢，我们是有选择性的，我们可以以情感来支配我们的行为，也可以选择不同的方式。
So the observer is a tool that we can use within us, because we are humans and we will have emotions, and we will have rage and pleasure and happiness and anger all over the place. But we get caught, we get trapped when we are acting out our emotions all the time. That is when we get into trouble with people around us and with ourselves. So practicing the observer allows us some freedom from those emotions if we want to.
Yes，那就是成为一个观察者，其实是一种我们需要使用的一种工具。那作为人类，我们有酸甜苦辣、七情六欲很多很多种样的情感。如果我们一直放任自己用情感就是来支配我们的行为，那么我们可能会遇到很多很多的问题，给我们带来很多麻烦。所以说，成为一个观察者，其实就是让自己更加有自由的去选择，你是否被情感支配，或者是你不会被情感所支配，它是一种自由，而不是一种禁锢。
Was that clarifying the question of the observer?
Yes, I think so.
Good.
Good. So, yes, here's another question about, um, yes, about accepting our sub personalities. So,
Mm-hmm.
extroverted people can be good at social networking. Introverted people may be good at um, research and study, and thinking people may good at logics and statistics, and feeling people uh, can be good at like networkings or people relationships. So there are so many career tests. They tend to give people advice on which type of work you are good at according to the personality type people belong to. But there's a saying in Chinese culture, moderation. That means it's good to stay in the middle, no extremes, no polarity. So, for example, in your webinar, Hannah may be a most percentage perfectionist, so which brings her a lot and help her to be a CEO. But later on, if she noticed being a perfectionist is not good for her, then maybe she will diminish the percentage of being a perfectionist. So, in our life, if we accept and know and balance our multi personalities, sub personalities, we may become a moderate person. So, so our personalities will no longer be distinct. So they will have many choices to choose, and they will be very confused to make a choice. So what do you think of this kind of situation? I don't know if I make this
Sure.
question very clear. Yeah, thank you
I'll,
very
I'll,
much. Yeah,
I'll
I'll
try to.
translate.
You need to translate first.
Yeah, I'll translate first. So 刚刚有一个问题是关于就是现在有很多的职业测试，它可以测试出你是一个外向性倾向的人，还是内向性倾向的，或者是一个感情导向的，或者是一个逻辑思维很强的。那外向型的人呢，通常被认为是非常擅长就是社交活动；内向的人呢，他通常擅长于就是坐下来就是认认真真做研究。那就是逻辑性很强的人，他们可能会非常擅长于数字。那就是情感导向的人呢，他可能更擅长于就是处理人际的关系。那这些就是职业测试就把我们分类了。那就是他会告诉我们擅长于什么。 那就像刚刚在讲座中提到的，就是汉娜呀，她是一个完美主义者，但是这个完美主义其实给她带来了很多东西，比如说她能够成功的成为一个 CEO，其实也是完美主义能够带她的一个非常好的一个方面。但之后，如果他意识到自己就是成为一个很非常极致的完美主义者，其实对他是不好的，他可能会就弱化自己的完美主义的倾向。那这种情况下呢，他可能就会非常的迷茫。就像我们在生活当中，如果我们知道自己有很多的就是亚人格，那我们就不断的去接受它去理解它，然后我们也会不断平衡这些亚人格，那我们就可能会成为一个中国古话里面说的中庸者。那中庸者呢，没有极端，他没有两极化，他就是处在中间。那我们的性格也不再是非常的鲜明，非常有特色。那每个人就可能就是一模一样了，就可能会倾向于就是没有特色。那就是我们将会有很多很多的选择，因为我们不知道自己的性格适合什么，我们也没有了方向，我们会变得非常的迷茫。所以想问问 Marianne 是怎么看待这个问题的？Yes.
Like you said, we all have different talents in terms of networking, being sociable, being extrovert, being introvert. And the important part of this work, I think, because I also work with energy type profiles, is that we need first to acknowledge what we already have within. And the next, do you want to translate that first?
You can continue.
Okay.
Yes, you can continue. Yeah.
Okay. We need to accept what we already have, because sometimes I work with people in lines of jobs where the manager wants them to be in a different way. And that's the manager prerogative to wish for that. But when I consult or coach the person, I need to ask them, what is your talent? What is your drive? What is your preference? And it needs to harmonize with that, because we have these abilities, but we cannot be something we are not. If you are introvert and you have a hard time talking to people, being extrovert, being out there, the first thing in order to change anything is to accept that that's who you are, part of who you are, and that is your preference. Because if not, we keep searching for things to make us different, to make us be liked, to have other people approve of us more. And that is where the pain comes from. So before we start bringing in on all these other things we want to be, we need to accept what we already have before we can understand what can be. Did that make sense?
Yes. 那我们每个人呢，他都有不同的天赋，可能是外向型天赋、内向型思考型的、情感型。那我们就是重点呢，就是要知道我们现在已经有的那些天赋是什么，并且接受它。就是像他在教练辅导当中有遇到，就是有些经理，他可能为了处理不一样的情形，他想变得不一样的样子。但是呢，Marianne 都会首先会问他们，你的天赋是什么？那你的就是动机是什么？那你的偏好又是什么？我们应该要就是利用，并且就是擅长利用到他们。有时候，如果我们是一个内向型的人，其实是很难成为一个外向型的人的。所以说，我们不要就是硬生生的去改变，而是要接受，首先要接受我们是谁。就是如果你要就是为了得到外界的认同，硬生生的去改变自己，想要别人去认同你，那其实就是我们痛苦的来源。所以相比于就是我们这样去改变，我们首先要接受和认识到自己本来是什么样的人。
Was that an answer to your question? Do I need to elaborate?
Yes. Can be. So I think the core importance is to accept who you are.
Yes.
Yes.
That is the primary thing. Accept everything that is within you, that is coming forth within you, because when we keep fighting what's within us, that's when the pain and the struggle just grows and grows. It's amazing how much we can let go if we just accept it and allow it. Because without, there's a saying in psychosynthesis where you cannot change anything until you accept what is.
Accept. 所以刚刚就是 Mariann 所提到的，就是我们就是要接受它，与其与你就是你不符合你内在习惯的去战斗去对抗，首先我们就是更重要的是去接受。So regarding the example in your webinar, Hannah, do you think Hannah is a born perfectionist?
I'm sorry, if she's what?
So Hannah is a nature perfectionist.
She has, excuse me one second. She has created the perfectionist as protection for herself. She has abilities as the perfectionist quite clearly. She has all these talents that was mentioned. However, as I said, when you bring forth all of that and it goes into overdrive and not balancing it with part of the artistic talents or the more laid back talents that she also has, or laid back needs, I should rather say, she is in the danger of becoming so stressed that she can get sick by using the perfectionist in each and every part of her life. So it's not that she has the perfectionist side, which is a dominating factor of her preferences. However, there are so many others that she's now starting to discover that are helping her balance this.
Yes. 对，关于汉娜刚刚一个例子中的，其实可能完美主义者可能是一种保护色，那他其实有很多方面的能力和天赋。那与其就是让其中的一个天赋，就是完美主义可能也是他的天赋之一，也是他的能力之一。那让他就是变得非常极端他应该也要就是接受其他方面的能力，就比如说他有审美和艺术方面的天赋。那如果他只是专注于或者不断的逼迫自己只专注于完美主义，他可能会变得非常的有压力，非常的紧张，也是不利于他的健康的。所以说，与其让就是一方独大，那更重要的是要全面的，就是认识到自己的天赋在哪里，让他们都接受自己的天赋。So, I have a question about sub-personality.
Mhm.
Yes. So what if a person is with devastating sub-personality? Do we need to accept it, or how can we uh, fix it, or not developing it?
Did you say a devastating
Yes,
personality?
devastating. Yes, if
Okay.
there is devastating.
Yes. Do you want to translate that first?
Yes. 第三个问题是，如果一个人他有毁灭性人格，那我们怎么去对待这样的人格？我们要去修正他吗？我们要去接受他吗？Yes.
We all have the type of devastating subpersonalities, such as the saboteur, for one. And the key, when you're noticing that you have a subpersonality that's limiting you, that's stopping you, that is where we often move from coaching and more into therapy, because there's some pain connected with that subpersonality. There is some fright, something that it's afraid of. And we need to go, like I showed in the spiral, we need to see what it is protecting us for. Because a devastating or limiting subpersonality is usually a subpersonality that is trying to protect something from happening, something it's afraid of. And usually that fright comes from the childhood. It comes from either something that happened, or it can be an imaginary scare. But it's usually linked to the past. So it needs to be pulled into the present time and looked at and see, well, how is this applicable to me now? Is this really true that I need to be afraid of this? Is this really something I need to protect myself from? Or have I gained enough security, confidence, maturity that I can let this go? And that is why it's important to engage with these subpersonalities, because before you can accept it, it's a road to acceptance. Let's just say that. It's not something you do like this. That's why I'm using all these tips and tools, how you can engage with it first to understand where it's coming from. And when you start to understand it, and that's when you can possibly accept it at the end. But yes, you're going to have to accept those as well, all of it.
Yeah. 关于刚刚提到的毁灭性人格，其实是人人都有的。那我们每个人都可能会有毁灭性人格，它其实是我们中的就是一个特质。当我们注意到这种特质、这种人格会限制到我们，会阻碍我们前进的时候，我们就要从就是寻求教练辅导，而是去改变要去寻求治疗。因为这样的毁灭性人格，它其实是有痛苦在人的身上的，人的身上会有痛苦、有害怕，它与我们的人格紧密相连。就我们又回归到刚刚就是 PPT 当中的演示文稿当中的螺旋环节，就是其实这样的人格可能是一种保护色，它可能源自于我们童年受到的一些什么场景的，有可能是我们就是担心将要发生的一些什么，或者是只是想象中的一些可能让自己感到害怕或感到恐惧的事情，它也会与我们的过去互相关联。那我们就是想到这个毁灭性人格呢，我们可能就是要去反思，要去接受到它。我们是否需要更多的自信，或是要变得更成熟，来去认识到它？我们更重要的其实是要去理解、去接受。我们要了解到它的根本来源是什么，了解到它的根本来源，我们才能够接受它，甚至我们会接受我们所有的人格。So So thank you very much, Mariana. So due to the time limit and you were not feeling very well, so this is the end of our webinar. Thank you very much for your support because you were ill. So I hope you can feeling better and get recovery very soon.
Oh, I will. But this was fun. And thank you again. I really enjoyed the questions and your participation. So, so
Yes.
thank you.
So later on, I may write an email to you about the audience data and something else.
Mhm.
Yes. So I hope you have very good day.
Thank you. The same to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye bye. You
Bye.
too. 非常感谢刚刚 Mariann 给我们带来非常的演讲，是关于亚人格的。那 Mariann 呢，她是 EMCC 的认证的大师级导师。如果您对大师级导师或者是 EMCC 的认证导师感兴趣，那请您扫码关注。那在我们导师界呢，我们有5项金句。第一呢是选对方向，导师首要的任务是帮助学员明确发展的方向，方向错了，与结果会渐行渐远。若方向确定后，那导师激励挖掘出学员的无限潜能，令其快速有效的达成目标。那第2项就是提升能量，能量的提升和事物的完成同时推进。导师辅导过程不仅仅强调达成目标，它更注重在达成目标的过程中，学员能量级和状态的提升。那第3个就是激活资源，导师他帮助学员发现并激活其内在和外在的资源。第4是成果量化，导师辅导过程中，关键绩效指标、关键行为指标和投资回报率均可被有效的计量和比较。第5项也是最重要的、最特色的一项是专业导师辅导的一个特色技能——隐形知识萃取。懂得萃取的专业导师，他不仅仅传承自己的经验与智慧，他也可以通过萃取他人的技能传承给学员。欢迎大家微信关注 Mentoring导师学员。对，就是如果对 EMCC 认证导师可以进行一个深度的了解。接下来告诉大家一个好消息，那就是组织隐形技能管理全球智库将在今年的11月13日、14日，瑞士达沃斯举办第1届隐形知识管理达沃斯论坛。那在此次论坛上面有非常多就是商界人士，还有一些重要的人士会汇聚于此。那同时呢，因为我们 Mentoring是这个组织隐形知识管理智库的全球技能管理全球智库的理事单位，那我们也会参与其中。那我们独家开放了线上的通道。那如果您对隐形知识管理对于就是萃取一些大师的经验和智慧感兴趣，那欢迎扫码去了解这个参会详情和门票信息。当然，如果现在您在直播间的话，非常欢迎您就是联系我们的工作人员，因为您将会有机会免费获得价值99欧元的线上门票。那接下来是我们下一期的讲座预告。下一期的主题是导师教练辅导新趋势，关注学员内在变化的情绪。那下一期的讲座呢，将有2位专家进行为我们带来精彩的演讲。那他们是 EMCC 欧洲导师与教练协会的大师级教练和督导，他们是 In Good Company 的联合创始人，他们是亚马逊最畅销书《决定做教练》的联合作者。他们的播客The Coaching Crowd 在播客的职业榜当中是排名第1的，也是在所有的播客排行榜是前1%的。那今天我们的讲座就到这里了，感谢各位的聆听，请您留下宝贵的建议。那当然，如果您觉得有价值，别忘了分享给你身边的朋友哦。